Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 1st regularly called meeting of the City Council. Ms. Hilbert, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilman Kidder?
Here.
Councilwoman Butler?
Present.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Crocker?
Here. If you would please rise and join me for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome, everyone. I see we have a lot of green jackets in the house, which is always exciting. That means there may be goodies floating around, so we're excited about that. But
Or Masters winners.
or Masters winner. Either way,
Yeah.
it works. It works. We have a relatively short meeting tonight since it is National Night Out, but we will jump right into it. Mr. Garza, do you have any announcements or reminders for us?
I do, actually. You would think I would have kept them short, but we have quite a few, and I have a couple of staff that'll come up and help me with a couple of these. But
No worries.
to start off, on behalf of the fire department, today, October 1st, marks the beginning of the Victoria Fire Department collecting new smoke detectors. They will do this at the Walmart stores on Houston Highway and Navarro. Members of the fire department will use the donated smoke detectors to safeguard homes throughout Victoria. The Victoria Fire Department 2024 Fire Prevention Show kicks off on Tuesday, October 8th at 9 a.m. at the Victoria Fine Arts Center. This year's Fire Prevention Week theme is smoke alarms. Make them work for you. Local elementary schools and the general public are invited to attend. For more information, please reach out to the Fire Marshal's office at 361-485-3460 or email fmo@victoriatx.gov. Additionally, a smoke detector drive event will be held on Saturday, October 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Walmart on Houston Highway. Community members will have an opportunity to visit with first responders from our fire department, as well as touch a truck, so that the kids can come out and enjoy that interaction. On behalf of the Parks Department, registration for the annual Lighted Christmas Parade is open now through October 31st or until all spots are filled. Registration is free to the public and can be found at victoriatx.gov/parks. On behalf of the Communications Department, today also marked the beginning of the application period for the 2025 Citizens Academy. This is a 5-week educational program that provides residents with an inside look at local government, and that is open through November 1st. We encourage all residents to apply before the deadline by visiting victoriatx.gov/Citizens Academy. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to call up a couple of staff to help with a couple of additional announcements. And to start that effort, I'm going to call Joel Novosad to come up and talk a little bit about Tejas Fest.
Mr. Novosad, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight in my festival attire, a few days early, to promote our huge inaugural festival, Tejas Fest, happening this Friday and Saturday in downtown Victoria. I just want to say the response we're seeing from the community is phenomenal. We think we're going to have a huge event, wonderful lineup of Tejano entertainers on Friday night with Fantasia, or Ram Herrera, which has been a recent addition to the lineup. Las Phoenix, and then Bobby Polito, huge star. We're very excited about that. And then Saturday, our main stage featuring the Past Lives, Jared Birmingham, Chris Cagle, and Texas country favorite, the Josh Abbott Band. We have a ton of family activities throughout the day. On Saturday, we were very intentional about that this year, about having more family activities throughout the day. We'll have a petting zoo, lucha libre, armadillo races, kids corral. Thank you to Mother Cluckers Downtown for their huge vendor market. We'll have over 15 food vendors there. And again, best of all, it's an absolutely free event, celebrating our bicentennial, celebrating our heritage and the culture that we are today in Victoria. So we really invite the community out. You can see more at tejasfestvtx.com or go to our discovervictoriatexas.com website. We also have the Tejas Fest Facebook page, and encourage the community to check that out and come out this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic time.
Very good. Thank you for the update, and we're all looking forward to it. Thanks for the hard work you put into it.
Thank you, Joe. And to follow that up, Daryl Lisek is going to come up and provide an update on our neighborhood cleanup efforts. You got to do it with the same enthusiasm.
Okay, I can do that. Sunday, no. So, good evening, Mayor and Council. So, we, on November 9th, we have our second neighborhood cleanup of the year. This neighborhood, I wrote this down so I make sure I get it right. They win the award for the longest title of a neighborhood, Original Town Site South Central is what I was told the name of this neighborhood is. So congratulations to them. We'll send them a trophy or something. This will be on November 9th. It is from 9 to 11. We're going to meet at the Art League on Bridge Street, and we hope to have as good a luck with volunteers as we've had at the past and have several hundred people show up and help us clean up this neighborhood. This is just one section, so for the neighbors who may be looking at this map saying, well, what about us? That will be part 2 that we'll do next spring. So we will stop at the railroad track. And then next spring, we'll go across the railroad tracks and finish on that side where the school is and everything. So with that, if you're fine, I'll introduce, or do you want to wait for the KVB award?
Yeah, we'll wait for that until after. Yeah. We'll have
So
to
if you have any questions, if for people who want to volunteer, they can go to keepvictoriabeautiful.org and sign up. We'll have hot dogs and donuts and all kinds of stuff. So we look forward to having everybody out there and showing this neighborhood how much we care. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Lisa.
Thank you, Daryl. And that is all the announcements we have.
Very good. We will move then to B2, which is public and employee recognitions. Ms. Hilbert, can you take care of our first proclamation for us?
Yes, sir. Whereas the City of Victoria is proud to honor the 4-H Youth Development Program of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service for 116 years of providing experience-based education to youngsters throughout the Lone Star State. And whereas this admirable program, which seeks to provide a learning experience for the whole child, including head, heart, hands, and health, helps young Texans to acquire knowledge, develop life skills, and form attitudes to enable them to become self-directed, productive, and contributing members of our society. And whereas it's more than 550,000 urban, suburban, and rural youth participants ranging in age from 8 to 19 hail from diverse ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds and truly represent a cross-section of the state. And whereas the program undoubtedly could not have achieved the success that it has today were it not for the service of its more than 22,000 volunteers who have given generously of their time, talents, energies, and resources to the youth of Texas. And whereas throughout its proud history, the 4-H program has developed positive role models for countless Texans, and through its innovative and inspiring programs, continues to build character and to instill the values that have made our state strong and great. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Crocker, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do officially declare October 6th through 12th, 2024, to be National 4-H Week in Victoria, Texas, and commend the 4-H Youth Development Program of the Texas AgriLife Extension Services and the many men and women who have made the program a success.
Paige Melton, and I am the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Agent for the 4-H Youth Development Program here in Victoria County. And I am super thankful for everyone's support. City, county, all of the vendors, sponsors, everyone that makes our 4-H program the success that it is. If you follow my Facebook page, you'll see lots of activities, or just talk to anybody that has a 4-H Clover throughout the community, and they'll tell you how awesome our program is, and we can't do it without the support from everyone in our wonderful city and county. And that's why we're here today, is to tell you guys thank you with some goodies, of course, that my kiddos made. And so first I would like to introduce everybody in the green jacket, and then 4 of them have a little brief just update of the 4-H program. So again, thank y'all very much for your support and for having us. So I have, and I'll just kind of go, if y'all want to stand up too, I'll recognize y'all too. I have Thomas Rung, Cody Nunez, Noah Rung, Peyton Hembry, and then Levi Fearbacher over there on the right, and then Abigail Nunez, Amory Fearbacher, Weldon Bauer, Maggie Jo Cantu, and Maddie Garrett.
So this is almost all of my ambassadors. I have 17 of them, and so they all have sports and things, but this is the majority of them, so I'm glad that you got to see their happy faces. So I'll turn it over to a couple of them, and then we'll get out of your hair. So thank y'all.
More than 6 million young people across the country will be celebrating National 4-H Week. It is an annual celebration of 4-H held the first full week of October. This is a week that our youth showcase the great things that 4-H offers young people and highlights the incredible 4-H youth in our community who work each day to make a positive impact on this community.
National 4-H Week is also a week that we recognize our volunteers, sponsors, donors, and supporters. We know the program would not function without the time, dedication, and passion of these hardworking individuals and our community.
The Victoria County 4-H program has 15 different community and project clubs across the county for youth to be a part of. Some of the major projects our youth participate in are shooting sports, livestock, food and nutrition, outdoor education, and leadership.
Last year, we had over 500 active 4-H members and hundreds of volunteers. Our goal as ambassadors is to continue to increase our membership even more for the new 4-H year and continue to spread the word about 4-H and all it has to offer.
So that was our little brief spill of, we have so many things going on. Like she said, we have over 500 members and they're active, and so many more than just the little brief update that we gave. So if you don't know much about 4-H, I encourage you to learn and ask maybe some members about their involvement. But again, thank y'all so much for having us.
Thank you all for being here. Certainly, it's always a pleasure to have your group at our meetings, and thanks for the goodies.
Of course, always.
Moving on then, item B2B is the Keep Victoria Beautiful October Beautification Award.
And Daryl's going to present this on behalf of Christy.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to ask Meredith Bird to come up here in just a second, and she's going to introduce our winner for the month. She's also going to just do a brief touch-up on the cleanup that we had that several of you participated in a couple of weeks ago. So, Meredith?
Good evening, everybody. Yes, before we get into the award, I wanted to give an update on the fall sweep. That was 2 Saturdays ago. Yes, sorry, it's been a long day. So first of all, on behalf of Keep Victoria Beautiful, I want to extend a huge thanks to everybody in the community who came out and helped clean up Victoria that day. Mayor, you did a fantastic job removing those dead trees. I'm going on record.
I had some help, but I won't, Councilman Young, he was there too.
He was there too, yeah.
Active participant, vital to the process.
So we had a total of 368 volunteers, which was phenomenal. We were able to clean 23 locations throughout Victoria, which equal about 24 miles of roadway. We collected 195 bags and then also assorted debris that were obviously too big to fit in, or heavy or whatever, to fit in some of the bags. So it was really a huge success, and we are very thankful to the community and for everybody who came out, to our sponsors who brought breakfast, brought drinks, everybody who helped really helped make it a success. And so we're looking forward to the neighborhood cleanup next month, and then we'll get into planning our spring activities for next year. So thank you again. And then moving right along, this month's beautification award is being presented to Hall Electric, which, it's a large property on North Navarro, and it always looks spectacular. The building is beautiful, the landscaping, the trees, everything really embodies what Keep Victoria Beautiful is about. And Hall Electric has been a part of our community since 1967. This is their third location, where they moved into in 2008. And so we are honored tonight to give this award to Stacy Flowers of Hall Electric.
Appreciate it. And it also goes to my brother Steven Turk, who's going to hide back there in the corner. No, we just appreciate it very much. We do believe in this community. I was born and raised here. It's been a family business, 57 years this year. Like they said, it's our third location. We've grown quite a bit from a small electrical company on Enoqua Street to a design center and electrical company now that services not only Victoria, but the design business covers the state of Texas. And we're very proud to have reached out to that and support our community. We appreciate all of the city for recognizing all of our long-time standing loyal customers, which we cannot be here without them. So we appreciate it, and we are very honored to receive this award. Thank y'all.
Well, congratulations, very well deserved. Mr. Garza, do you have any other public and employee recognitions?
No, sir.
Okay. Items from council. I do have one item related to tonight's agenda. That is item D7 on the consent agenda. We'll move to section E, which will be an action item for council. I believe Mr. Garza has a presentation for us related to that. Are there any other items from council this evening? Seeing none, then we will move on to citizens' communication. Mr. Vondera. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Vondro. I live at 2204 East North Street. I want to thank Attorney Scott for her participation in Keep Victoria Beautiful, and any other people on the city council that might have been there that I forgot and stuff, you know. And also, I would like to thank Steve Solis. He's no longer with code enforcement. He spent a lot of time at the trailer park doing code and violations. You know, I thought he was the manager, but because I'd see this white car going all over the place, you know, at least once a week, and he could have got out of being there because he had enough rank because he was the supervisor at code enforcement. He could have answered phones or made reports, but he took charge and got a lot of violations, and because of his work and public works, they found the sewer leaks and the water leaks. And one way you can find water leaks is when your water bill is $30 and then the next month it's $800. That's how you usually know when you have a water bill. And a lot of times they don't cut you no slack. They expect you to pay that $800 water bill or $600, $170, even though it's not your fault. So I appreciate Steve Solis and everyone else involved in detecting the sewer leaks and the water leaks. And we had a serious sewer leak on trailer 18, and he didn't want to take care of it, so they evicted him and took care of it. You know, it's just a shame they had to evict him so they could take care of it, but it was taken care of. And appreciate everyone involved in code enforcement for taking care of the trailer park. Someone had bought it like 6 years ago, and I haven't even seen them at the trailer park even one time, but I see code enforcement there at least weekly, and I appreciate their effort. Thanks, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Vondera. And then I have Victoria Caldera. Good evening, welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Victoria Caldera. I don't mean to have everyone let out a deep sigh, but I'm here today to talk about a little bit about what's going on our streets as far as these accidents go. We are seeing them on the hour, by the hour, and it's quite frankly ridiculous. Everyone wants to blame the city, everyone wants to blame the police department or blame the median, but no one really is taking any accountability for their own actions. I believe that it would be to remedy the situation that if we could have a few more patrol cars on our streets that are issuing citations for what people may deem minor traffic violations. Speeding is, these things are in place to keep everyone around us safe. We have far too many people that are comfortable driving under the influence, running red lights, not stopping at stop signs. A rolling stop is not a complete stop, and that's a traffic violation. I think that if we are issuing these citations, people are going to get tired of paying them, and eventually we'll see a little bit of, hopefully, some remedy to that. I don't know that we have any traffic cameras, but I think it'd be an investment to the community to see if we had them at least at our busiest intersections. We're living in a pretty tough economy. We all know this, that not everyone can afford their insurance rates right now, let alone to go out and buy a new car. Keep it a little short. I do want to end on saying that I do appreciate our police department. I am not blaming them for these accidents. And I urge everyone here and our community to take a look at your own driving habits. Are we making complete stops? Are we using our blinkers? These things, every car has them and no one seems to be using them. But I do appreciate our city and our police department, and hopefully we'll see these accidents come to a stop. There's just far too many, and I know we've all seen them. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Caldera. Appreciate your comments. All right, those are the only two cards that I have this evening, so we will move. We have no items of public hearing, so we will move to the consent agenda. Ms. Hilbert, can you read that for us, please?
Yes, sir. Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting held on September 17th, 2024. Item D2 is a resolution approving a variance to Section 21-163A8 for a property located at 3010 North Main Street to allow for the encroachment into platted setback lines. Item D3 is a resolution approving the contracts with PMGR Development Group Corporation and approved homeowners in the CDBG Owner-Occupied Rehabilitation Program to provide rehabilitation services in the amount of $149,761.70. Item D4 is a resolution approving the purchase of one 2025 Mag MD 742 with Powfinger M100 L72 crane body from Vanguard Truck Centers using East Texas Mac Tips contract number 230802 in the amount of $267,916. Item D5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a sub-recipient agreement with TDEM administered grant awards to the for the public assistance related to hurricane preparation activities during the Hurricane Beryl disaster declaration. Item D6 is a resolution approving a second amendment to extend the expenditure deadline for the community grant agreement with the South Texas Zoological Society.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert. Do I have any motions with respect to the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda 1 through 6 passes. We will move to item D7 then.
Item D7 is a resolution approving the FY 2024-2025 Victoria Sales Tax Development Corporation budget.
All right, so we thought it'd be prudent to take a few minutes and walk you through the basically the proposed budget for VSTDC. In doing so, we're also going to hit a little bit again on the CIP, and so Avery's passing out the fiscal year 25 version of the CIP document that David alluded to on Friday would be completed and distributed to you today. Really quickly, mechanically speaking, I should probably start there, but as you know, the Sales Tax Development Corporation is a separate entity that is made up of representatives appointed by you and also made up by some of you, but ultimately, City Council approves the budget and the projects that the Sales Tax Development Corporation undertake. And so this specific proposed budget for VSTDC was developed and proposed to the Sales Tax Development Corporation, and they approved it. And so that's why now it's here before you for final adoption and approval. I want to focus just on a couple of things here. One being the fund balance aspect of it. Sales Tax Development Corporation is very healthy as it relates to its fund balance. This puts the group in a good position to be able to consider large projects if they come, or large initiatives, things of that sort. And I know that we've talked with them about some, and we've talked to you about some projects as well that they could potentially financially participate in. Think, for example, their commitment to the public safety headquarters building over 10 years at $1 million apiece. And so, or per year. So there's some flexibility and some capacity there to continue to have conversations with them about some of the projects that we care about the most. I alluded to on Friday as well when we discussed the community center master plan that it would necessitate some collaboration and partnership with the Sales Tax Development Corporation. So I wanted to highlight that the fund balance and the fund and overall the finances for the Sales Tax Development Corporation are in good shape. I know this is a busy slide. but I want to call your attention to the column to the left of the dark, solid black line running through almost the to the right-hand side of the slide. That's what shows the proposed budget of $15,145,279. That's the number that's been included in your packet as well. I want to go through a couple of these line items to achieve, I guess, a couple of objectives. One, clarify and explain what some of these are. Two, give you a heads up about things that are forthcoming. And three, talk a little bit about why some of these have increased. And so I want to start just working my way down on this incentive programs item. This incentive programs item is proposed to be at $2 million for fiscal year 25. You'll notice that in fiscal year 24, the original budget had that at 1.5. This line item actually used to be at $3 million a few years ago and was reduced to that 1.5 figure when the South Sac Development Corporation and Council supported VS3C contributing $3 million to the Port of Victoria to help them with a rail line project. And so the sacrifice, if you will, of being able to do that with the port came at the reduction of the incentive programs line item. Now that we've finished that commitment to the Port of Victoria, we're ramping that back up. And the whole intent of this incentive programs line item is basically to have a reserved pot of money available should a project come before us and necessitate some kind of rebate agreement or other type of assistance that the South Sac Development Corporation and you deem appropriate. Not all of these dollars are spent every year because it is solely 100% dependent on whether a project comes. Previous to 5 years ago, there wasn't a dedicated line item for this, and much of the feedback that we received from our economic development partners back when I did an initial assessment of our economic development programs and efforts in 2019 was that the absence of having a dedicated allotted figure for that type of support really made it difficult for any of our economic developers to basically recruit and have conversations with folks because they felt that in the absence of there being a dedicated line item, it was very difficult to have the conversation with South Sac Development Corporation or you about tapping into, let's say, fund balance or something else. And so having the dedicated funding source allows for a much easier conversation, not only just as we talk, but also mechanically, financially speaking, that money is already allocated, doesn't necessitate budget amendments, doesn't necessitate, anything of that sort. And so it helps things go a lot quicker and smoother should a project arise that necessitates that. And so one perfect example would be, or two would be, when we partnered with the developer next to Home Depot to relocate the exit ramp to help facilitate, like where the boot barn is now, for example. Another one would be the sales tax rebate agreement that we entered into with Whole Property Group for them to build out Murdoch's and the Longhorn Steakhouse, just as an example, right? And so this would be the line item that type of financial support and commitment would come from. If I continue going down the line, any questions on that one? Okay. If I continue down on that same column, you'll notice the recommitment to workforce development at $150,000. This is something that we now, could very easily take for granted, but up until 3 years ago, we didn't have that allotment. And so one of the key objectives of the South Sac Development Corporation through the Economic Development Strategic Plan and their own work of plan that was spearheaded by former Chair President Bill Blanchard, had a heavy focus on workforce development. And so we partner and basically use these funds to match grants that our local workforce group taps into, Victoria College taps into, the school district taps into, the Construction Academy taps into it as well. And so we're able to support them in all of those efforts through some of these dollars that we allocate. You'll see how the Port of Victoria figure is blank now because, as I mentioned, we finished that support. You see the workforce housing aspect, that's also blanked out because there is no existing project. The research and marketing, that's where we actually contribute to the Victoria Economic Development Corporation. So the funding allotment to them comes in that line item. The one for professional services is going up from $200,000 to $500,000, and so I did want to spend a minute just talking a little bit about why that's the case. On Friday, when we presented the water situation with GBRA, we mentioned that we want to pursue an RFQ to solicit a very specific water-centric engineering firm to help us explore all of our options. And so this line item was specifically increased to help account to pay for what that might cost, which at this point we don't know, but that was one of the reasons why this line item went up. We also talked on Friday about continuing to explore the community center master plan. And so there's some funding here allotted for us to continue working with our consultants to help continue to explore the options for the community center. We also talked on Friday about the consultants that we're hiring to help us develop a plan for Riverside Stadium, the adult sports complex, youth sports complex. That's coming from this budget line item as well. And so you can see how this is all connected between, you know, our partnership and collaboration with the South Sacs Development Corporation and many of the projects that we discuss with you, like we've done recently. The last item that I'll hit on briefly before I go into some specifics on the CIP is the item related to transportation. And I kind of flew through that one really quickly, but the transportation item actually includes two elements. It includes the element of our funding contribution to the local regional planning commission and the transit system, and it also includes an allotment towards the airport. And so you may recall that we recently entered into an agreement with the county, or I should say the South Sacs Development Corporation entered into an agreement with the county to help increase the number of available flights out of here, and so this is where that money's coming from. The specific allotment that is allocated to the transit system is not changing. It's kept the same, but we fully expect that that figure is actually going to go up. And so we sort of put a caveat to that when we discussed it with South Sacs Development Corporation, and I will with you as well, because we know that the transit system is going through a lot of changes. They're going through a route study that's going to recommend a more efficient system. So we totally expect the transit request for the upcoming year to increase above and beyond what it's been because of their efforts to have basically a better system. And so when that time comes, we'll have the conversation with the South Sacs Development Corporation. That'll probably necessitate a budget amendment. So I want to give you a heads up about that. And finally, I want to hit a little bit on the CIP because there's a few new CIP related projects that were not formally discussed in the development of our CIP with you through our quarterly workshops that we ended up recommending to South Sacs Development Corporation for inclusion and are now included. And I also wanted to highlight this booklet. Just really quickly in this booklet, you may recall that we transitioned back to a 3-year CIP. And so this booklet, the fiscal year 25 edition, is just inclusive of 25, 26, and 27. And so you have that. Please review that at your own leisure. For the benefit of the new council members, every single year we formalize and put out a CIP book. And so there'll be, for example, next year there'll be a fiscal year 26 edition. And oftentimes there's changes, there's additions, there's subtractions, you know, things of that sort. And so we're very clear to convey to the public that, yes, even though this is a printed document and we're committed to doing these projects, technically everything is subject to change through the annual process that we go to for a variety of different reasons. Very quick, and I apologize to whoever submitted a bet on an over and under for today's presentation or council meeting. But just as a quick refresher, the entire CIP for fiscal year 25 is $40.5 million. And so really the big takeaway from this is just what is the portion that's associated with the South Sacs Development Corporation, which is $6.43 million out of that 40.5. And so 5.2 is allotted to thoroughfares and 1.2 is for utilities. Those are inclusive of projects that we've already discussed with you, and so I won't go through them in detail other than simply just highlighting them on this map to give you a sense of how spread out around our community they are. Again, these are projects that we've been discussing for years that are simply just up to get done in fiscal year 25. Same on the utility side. We've been talking about the enhancements and improvements that the regional wastewater treatment needs, and so this is just another project that is up for fiscal year 25. And you also kind of get a sense of where some of these projects are. So new ones. And so we ended up recommending to the South Sacs Development Corporation adding the design for Burrowsville. Burrowsville is basically the only, there's a couple of things here, but if we're trying to facilitate movement to the airport, if you're coming from Business 59, this is the quickest and easiest way to get to the airport. You would obviously exit Sac Lentz, take a right, on Lone Tree, and then take a left on Burrowsville, and then a right on Houston Highway or Business 59 to get to the airport. It's not in good shape. And so we want to make sure that as we look to potentially expand availability of property for expansion of industrial park or other things, that this road be up to speed and up to par, if you will, I should say. And so we've included the design in that, for that, I should say. This is a big one because it hasn't really been talked about in a couple of years, but we're bringing it back to the table, and I'll explain why. There was also a couple of articles that were written on this project. But a few years ago, and really for many years before then, there's been a lot of conversation around what is the role of the city and the Sales Tax Development Corporation as it relates to facilitating development. And of course, the schools of thought range from, well, you ought to buy a bunch of property, kind of like what we did with the industrial park, right? Or do you invest in infrastructure to help facilitate the development of property that we don't own? And ultimately, through the years of conversation, we presented a couple of options to the Sales Tax Development Corporation a few years ago, and they opted with the concept of helping facilitate the development of property that we don't own through investing in infrastructure. And one of the low-hanging fruit opportunities there was the I-69, the future I-69 corridor, because there's just got a lot of gaps. And so this map gives you a sense of the properties that are along that corridor that don't have legitimate access to water or sewer, or in some instances both. And so we wanted to basically address that, because we also believe we're missing an opportunity with obviously the upgrade to I-69. There's a lot of traffic that also passes by our community, and those are all dollar signs that pass by our community. And so we need to be more intentional with developing this corridor to help leveraging and hopefully keep some of that dollars local. But in any case, we parked the idea a few years ago because of the need to acquire easements to build this infrastructure. I know we've talked for years about just how cumbersome that process might be. And we discussed it when we talked about North Street, when we talked about Guy Grant. And so we finally went through an RFQ process to pre-qualify some firms that we could hire to help us with this process, which is why now you're seeing this come before you in fiscal year 25. And so we're doing a few things with that 1.37 million, finalizing the engineering aspect of it, and then starting, that should read easement acquisition as opposed to right away, but it's to begin acquiring the easements that we might need for this infrastructure. And then obviously in subsequent years, we'll start funding the actual construction. And you can see there at the bottom how many acres of land would be basically made developable with these investments, and it totals over 500 acres. And so you get it's not all obviously contiguous to each other, it's all spread out, and the map gives you a sense of that. But all in all, we think that the total effort might cost somewhere between $5 to $7 million once it's all said and done, which we wouldn't be able to buy 500 acres for $5.7 million. And so that's why the group felt this was the better path. You've also heard by a variety of different people, both from Ken and from David, about the bridge project on Briggs Boulevard. And there were some recommendations made for us to expand the scope of some of that work just to make sure that it was done right. So some of it was basically we're forced to kind of address these issues that you see here related to moving a water line and addressing some fiber issues. So this was sort of like a no-brainer, but it wasn't in nobody's budget. And so that's why we officially added it. And then we also officially added some of the projects that we had recommended. So for example, doing the remainder of Millette, doing some right turn lanes onto Briggs, from Ball Airport Road to Millette. We ended up adding all of these elements so that hopefully by the time the Briggs project is complete, we've taken advantage of that going on and addressed some of the other issues in the area at the time. And basically, that's it.
Mr. Garza?
Yes.
Those projects, though, are not in the capital improvements program booklet that you just given us, right?
I don't know if no, because there were additions that we ended up.
Could you possibly get those to us at a later date that we could add to our books? I know that the funding's a little bit different and we don't have categories
Sure.
for funding, but.
Yeah, we can look at how easy or smoothly we can
Well, I mean,
marry the
they can
two.
be loose paper. I would just put it in my book, but
Okay.
I'm
With a
just kind
staple?
of be able to look at all of the projects at once.
Sure.
Thank you.
I wanted to personally thank you for the breakdown of the budget and the rationale behind some of those specific line items. I think it's important to ensure that our residents understand our city's development goals. moving forward, there may be questions related to this budget, and to whom should residents direct those questions? Would it be us as council? Would it be sales tax board? Would it be you specifically?
I mean, without knowing what the questions are, it's difficult
Right.
to answer that question, right?
Just-
But ultimately, all of the people you just mentioned, are involved with the development of the budget for the Sales Tax Development Corporation and involved with the conversations. Now, if
I
the
heard
question,
Jesus. I heard Jesus.
if the
Did everybody else
questions,
hear that?
if the question is very, very specific, obviously the council members that are part of the Sales Tax Development Corporation, are more up to speed with how the money is being spent, where it sits, some of the projects that are discussed in executive session with the Sales Tax Development Corporation. So if it's that level of specificity, maybe those council members would probably be the more appropriate council members because of just being more aware of what's going on with the Sales Tax Development Corporation. But obviously, staff is aware as well. So.
Any other questions? No, I was, as a member of the Sales Tax Development Board, I was glad to see the utility work come back on the I-69 project, because as you described it as low-hanging fruit, I think that's exactly what it is, that we can open up, that area, which we know is coming. I mean, I-69 is coming through there eventually, as, bigger and better than it is even. And so I think getting ahead of that and being smart and strategic about how we plan utilities for development of that area, now is the time to do that rather than later. So I was glad to see that come up before sales tax, so.
Great.
All right. Thank you then. With that then, I will entertain any motions with respect to item D7.
I move we adopt this item.
I second it. I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, D7 passes. We then move to item E1.
Item E1 is a resolution awarding the contract for the College Park Street Reconstruction Project to Clark Construction of Texas in the amount of $7,350,362.77.
Good evening, Mr. Shevlik.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Excuse me. College Park subdivision. This project is the second phase and culmination of the overall improvements to this subdivision. The utilities were recently completed earlier this summer. Bids for this street improvement project were received on August 21st. And the entire area comprising the work area is bounded on the north by Hiller Street, running from Main Street to Navarro on the east. On the south, it's Red River, and the railroad on the intermediate streets. This project will consist approximately of 44,500 square yards of asphalt street improvements and approximately 22,700 feet of curb and gutter replacement. The street section proposed is to lime stabilize the subgrade, put a geogrid down, 8 inches of limestone base, prime and seal coats, and then top it with 1.5 inches of hot mix asphalt. The streets that will be constructed all consist of Hiller, Buena Vista, Loma Vista, Warren Street, Park Avenue, Virginia Avenue, Liberty Street, De Leon Street, and Wheeler Street. We had an established project budget of $7,151,244. Went too far. 2 proposals were received, one from Clark Construction of Texas and the other from Lester Construction. Clark's proposal was $7,350,362.77. When the proposals were scored and ranked, Clark Construction's proposal was deemed to be the best value for the city. Project timeline proposed was 365 days. Contract award should have read October 1st. This was from the previous, when I was prepared to present this at the September 17th meeting, and I missed this when I was editing. Contract executed should be in October. Right now, with their current backlog, they are anticipating beginning construction in February of 2025. There are various concerns I've heard expressed regarding this bid, regarding this timeline on this contract and construction, and I thought I would address those a little bit. The project is over budget by just under $200,000. However, Finance Department has found additional funds, enough funds to fund this project. These funds come from accrued interest from the construction bond accounts. As far as the delayed start date, currently Clark Construction is 4 separate projects under contract with the City of Victoria. The 2024 street maintenance project, that is projected to be complete by the end of October. The 2024 mill and overlay project, that is projected to be complete this month. The 2024 street rehabilitation, this is in the Bridle Ridge subdivision as well as the Vista del Sol subdivisions. That construction began in July, and they are projecting completion in August of 2025, possibly sooner, but that is right now their current projection. They recently were awarded the Tanglewood Phase 1 Street Improvement Project. That project is set to begin construction in 2024, in October of 2024, with the construction anticipated to take 1 year and complete of October of next year. We could ask them to start the College Park project sooner, but just with their current workload, staffing, this would end up forcing one of the other projects to be pushed back. More than likely, it would be Tanglewood project, as theirs project and area has been under construction for longer. I think it'd only be fair to let them have their project go on the schedule that is currently underway. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey, David. There's a proposed development at Hiller in Navarro Fish Pond.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to just totally reconstruct these roads, and then they're going to come in with heavy equipment and do that. I'm just trying to figure out how we protect our investment of new roads so that we don't damage with heavy equipment.
Well, as I understand it, they're proposing an entrance off of Navarro, and that's where we would require them to bring in all their heavy equipment.
Correct.
How's that going to work with traffic on Navarro?
I mean, I don't know what specifically you mean by that. You know, we have a construction site on Main Street where traffic's going in. Obviously, traffic control would have to be part of their project, right? Just how traffic control is part of our project on Main Street, right? So really the onus is on them to ensure that they're providing the adequate traffic control if the street needs to be blocked or a big truck needs to get in on the site, you know, things of that sort. So, I mean, we can obviously communicate with them and ensure that that's adequate, and I'm sure that'll come up as part of the development review process with them.
Just want to make sure that we protect our investment and they're not running their heavy trucks on there.
Right.
So that answered that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity and simply because I maybe don't understand it or I'm not aware of it, how does that scoring work when we're looking at 2 different proposals?
When we put the proposals, advertise the proposals, we establish a set of criteria with scoring percentages. And then when we get the bids in, we review those proposals, not actually bids. And they're based on anything from pricing to contractor's experience level to the equipment available to experience with the city. And those factors are all given score numbers. And when we sum those up, that's how we determine which one is best value for the city.
And I think that term, I think, is key really quick, because a few years ago, we did transition from solely taking a low bid approach to awarding construction contracts like these to a best value approach that takes, you know, all these other factors into account. Now, it's maybe only happened maybe once or twice where we've actually recommended a contractor that was slightly maybe more expensive than the lowest bid because of it being more of a best value, right? You know, in this instance, if you go back a couple slides, you'll notice that the second respondent, you can see the difference, right? And so sometimes these aren't anywhere near close, and it can make it very difficult, to obviously recommend a higher number. The timeline piece that David brought up, if let's say the other bidder could start sooner, right? Then the question is, well, is starting sooner worth paying $700,000 more, for the project? And we felt not.
And if I'm not mistaken, this item was pulled from a previous agenda because there was a question about the bid. And Ms. Lacy, I understand that that has now been resolved and you are satisfied with the bid and we can proceed forward.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Shiblik. I will entertain any motions with respect to item E1.
I move to approve item E1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? E1 passes, and that moves us to item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution to nominate a candidate or candidates to serve on the Victoria Central Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The resolution before you this evening provides a nomination to the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. So we're not actually casting our votes or anything this evening, just simply nominating who we wish to serve on that board. The Board of Directors' role in the property tax system, some of the major highlights are that they hire the chief appraiser, they set the budget, appoint the appraisal review board members, but they have no authority to set values or do the appraisal methods. The chief appraiser would carry out those duties and the legal duties, and they hire the staff, make the appraisals, and operate the appraisal office. So the election process for this board, before October 1st, the chief appraiser has to deliver the voting entitlement to us. So the letters are addressed to Dwayne and City Manager Garza. So they received the letters, and we have until October 15th to nominate up to 5 candidates. Before October 30th, the ballot will be prepared and sent back to us, also through letters, and then we will, the City Council will have to cast our votes by resolution, and then I return that to the chief appraiser. And then 5 candidates with the most votes are declared elected and voted to those for the voting entities are notified of that. So remember that this appraisal district board also does now have 3 elected members that are elected by the voting public. That wasn't really on the ballot this past May simply because they only had 3 people apply, and so they kind of automatically won their seat on that board. So the number of votes. The City of Victoria has 839 votes. You can see by the list there that Victoria ISD has the most votes. And we're third in line with slightly behind Victoria County. So it's a very confusing process on how the votes are determined. So Carrie sends us, within the letter, she sends us the list of the votes and the allotment. So it's actually in the tax code that spells out exactly how she has to do it. And it's kind of based on the levies from 2023. So they go 1 year back to use those numbers, and then it's a complicated process, so she sends that out to us. So the casting of the votes we will do, like I said, the council will do at a later date, but you can actually, I just wanted to explain the process, especially for our 2 new council members. The votes, we can split our votes, or we can cast them all for 1 member, but if you look back at how many votes we have compared to the other entities, historically, the City of Victoria has cast all of our votes for 1 person to kind of ensure that the person that we would like to serve on the board will get that nomination. If we start splitting up the votes, then there's less chance that our person that we choose to nominate would end up on that board. But and then historically, we have City of Victoria has also nominated a city council member, but that's completely up to y'all. Currently, Ms. Scott serves in that capacity, serves in that capacity for the City of Victoria. And I asked her on Friday, and she's agreed to accept that nomination if y'all so choose. She currently serves as the president of that.
But I don't want to take somebody else, take the opportunity from somebody else.
but I'm willing to and happy to continue serving.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And seeing as how you're president, I wouldn't want to disrupt that board.
I have a
Thank you out of my
question.
mouth fast enough.
I don't know if this is a question for April or for Allison, but historically, April's correct that we would cast all of our votes for our representative, but I believe that changed the last time it happened because, and I don't know if the law has changed, so I don't know if this is still applicable, but it was something along the lines of ensuring that at least one vote went for every member to ensure that this group had the ability to start a process to remove any member, because legally you had to have had cast a vote towards somebody to initiate that process. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I do recall that.
I do recall that, and I
Okay.
think that might have been,
Right. So I just
What we
want to
changed at the last
mention,
minute
I just want to mention that to kind of clarify that the city's approach to that did change under Mayor Bachknight's leadership to transition to that. Just putting that out there just for transparency, and obviously we're not doing that tonight, but just to provide that context.
Right, because tonight is just the nomination. That came when we actually do the votes. I
Right.
believe you're correct about that. Yes.
And I'd like to add for discussion and possibly a change to what we're about to do. If historically we've nominated one, but we can all nominate up to 5, and then looking at those numbers, I'd like to propose that we additionally nominate Dr. John McNeil. He currently serves on the Appraisal District Board. However, he's representative for Nursery School District, which only has 88 votes. And do they get to cast a nomination too, though? I guess that's what my thought process was, just to get his name in the running as well, if we can nominate
I believe
him.
all entities get to nominate someone. They
entities
don't
do.
always all take advantage of that, but they do all get the
I
chance.
mean, and it had, this part would have nothing to do with us actually casting our votes, but it would be another name that could be put on that list. So I would like to make that recommendation. I'm throwing everybody off, I'm sorry.
You are from the standpoint that, I mean, if he's representative of a certain entity, I would think it would be incumbent upon that entity to determine whether they wanted him to continue to be their nominee, rather
Okay.
than us assuming that they do, although I don't know why they wouldn't, but I don't, I kind of view this as a stay in your lane from the standpoint that if he's their nominee, then that's going to be up to them to put him
That's
up
fair.
again as his nominee, and I don't think we need to be saying to them, hey, here's who you need to be up there. I think we need to nominate who we want from the city and let each entity decide their own nominee. At least that's my thoughts, but I'm open to anybody else's thoughts.
I agree. I move we nominate just Jan Scott.
Second that nomination.
So that's a motion for just Jan Scott.
Jan Scott.
Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It was unanimous, including Ms. Scott. So
Yes, that's my new campaign slogan, vote for just Jan Scott.
there we go. Very good. That is all of our items for this evening. I believe we will have a short executive session, Mr. Garza, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are at 5:58, and we will take just a short 5-minute break to let the room clear, and then we will re-adjourn into executive session.
Okay, City Council.
Please clear quickly.
The council recessed for executive session on the first day of October 2024. Subject matter is as follows: executive session deliberation for Texas Government Code 551.087, 551.072, and 551.071.